It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. It's Expresso right here on SABC3. Now, breastfeeding is supposed to be the natural way to feed a baby, but for many moms, it just does not always come naturally. Baby feeding and health are a very common concern for parents with newborns. Now, on today's Baby Talk, we're joined by occupational therapist Meg Faure and breastfeeding consultant Pitt from Breast Pumps and Beyond. Good morning, Meg and Michelle. How are you?
Good morning, Leanne. Very good.
I am so well. Listen, I want to talk about breastfeeding today. I know that it is it considered a beautiful time for bonding between mom and baby?
Yeah, no, it certainly is. I mean, it's the closest that you are other than when the baby's in the womb.
Yes.
So it's a very natural thing for little ones, particularly on a sensory level where they're able to touch mom's skin, smell mom's smell, and really just connect. They also, I mean, amazingly, can see absolutely perfectly from the distance of the breast to the eyes. That's the distance that babies can see at birth.
Yeah.
And so they fall in love when they're being breastfed, aside from obviously all the wonderful nutritional side.
Exactly. Well, like I said in the intro, it's not always something that comes naturally to all moms. What is the rate of breastfeeding with regards to women in South Africa?
Unfortunately, we don't have very accurate research in South Africa, and that's probably one of our biggest problems. I know right now in the UK, we have an initiation rate of about 80%. So 80% of moms are breastfeeding at birth, but it drops down to 1% at 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And the challenges in a first world country are huge and something they're trying to battle through, and I believe our situation is even worse in South Africa.
Is there any way that a new mom can prepare for what is to come before baby gets there?
Always. Preparation is always better.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that education is vital, and to educate a mom as much as possible on what the benefits are for breastfeeding so that they can make the right decision. Because you can make any decision you'd want to as long as you are educated in the benefits going forward. And then support, I think, is vital. So having the support of a partner, perhaps a group of women in a women's group, having a doctor's support, having a great support system is very, very important.
How long should one be breastfeeding for? What is the factors that determine, okay, cool, now I can stop? Is there a specific time period that one is to take into consideration?
I mean, you can breastfeed all the way till 4 years old if you want to. So you can breastfeed as long as you want. The absolute essentials are, number one, in the first few days, mums don't actually produce breast milk. They produce what's called colostrum. It's a very creamy substance, and it's very, very important for lifelong health. So those first few days are a non-negotiable for all babies. And then after that, after 3 days, your milk comes in. And then, of course, breast milk is absolutely fabulous. It's the perfect food for babies. So mums should be breastfeeding for at least 6 months. But we always say for as long as they can. But, you know, be realistic, but for as long as they can.
For as long as you can. Well, we have Meg Faure in studio as well as Michelle. I feel like you wanted to add something at the end there, Michelle.
World Health Organization says 2 years.
2 years.
So at 6 months, around that area, we're going to start. Meg's got a bit more info on that in her book, Weaning Sense. But you're going to supplement with solid foods and that sort of thing. But up to 2 years is really, really beneficial for the baby's health, as well as mums.
Exactly.
It can actually reduce your chance of having certain cancers long term. And there's a dose response, a reaction to the amount of breast milk a baby will actually benefit from. So a lot of moms feel like, oh, I won't have enough, so I'm going to give up. When there's actually that 1 ml, that 2 ml makes a difference to mom and baby. So I think that's a good message for moms to take forward.
Definitely a good message. Well, we've got our experts in studio on speed dial, Pitt from Breast Pumps and Beyond, as well as occupational therapist Meg Faure. We're talking about breastfeeding this morning on Baby Talk.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
And we're back with Baby Talk right here on Expresso, your feel-good breakfast show. We are joined in studio by occupational therapist Meg Faure, as well as Pitt from Breast Pumps and Beyond, because we are talking about all things breastfeeding. Now, I heard that many moms throw in the towel at around 3 months. They're just like, I'm done. Shutting down the factory and I'm doing something else. What kind of tips would you give new moms just to continue on this path of trying to breastfeed?
So I think one of the main main reasons that mums give up at around about that time, and sometimes a little earlier even, is because they start to worry about their supply. So the problem with breastfeeding is you can't monitor how much is coming out. So when your baby's crying, you think maybe they're still hungry and maybe it's that I don't have enough milk. And so then what often happens is that mums start to supplement with a different type of milk, usually formula milk, obviously. And as soon as you do that, you tell your body that actually we don't need as much as you're producing. You can produce less because the baby can get the milk elsewhere. So the body does produce less, and so you're in the cycle now. And so within a very short period of time, breastfeeding kind of comes to an end. And for a lot of mums, they're quite sad about that. But, I mean, some solutions that mums could look at for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's about that time that mums start stressing a bit about going back to work. And that stress can obviously affect your milk supply too. So it's important to remember that it's a natural bodily function, but also stress can affect every part of our body. So doing things like having more skin-to-skin time, where you actually just have quiet time with your baby and have them on you, will help. And then also just creating a little bit of flexibility in your life, making sure you're having a good diet. All of those things will obviously help you with your milk supply, making sure you're drinking enough water. But frequency is the most important thing. A lot of moms don't realize that you need to actually replace every single feed that your baby has with a pumping session if you're not able to be with your baby. And as soon as you cut that frequency, exactly like Meg said, supply and demand. If you remove that supply, the demand, the supply will be affected.
I hear a lot about mom guilt. Like moms have a lot of guilt when it comes to their children, especially when having to go back to work, like you were talking about, Michelle. But also when you do decide to stop breastfeeding, there's guilt in that as well. You just feel bad. What would your advice be to moms who are maybe going through that right now?
Yeah, mom guilt is real. And we don't hear about dad guilt so much. No, mom guilt is a real thing. And I think specifically with weaning, it has to be something that mom wants to do, or baby wants to do, or both. And less focus on what everyone else is saying and doing. So really coming up with that decision as your immediate little family and what's best for you, and try not compare yourself to other moms. And I think that's just good advice for moms in general. We live in a society where we see moms on TV and Instagram and all of these sort of things, and it's we sometimes see the perfect shade of something and not real life. So I think just staying in your own lane and not comparing will, and be focused on your own goals is more important.
Please forgive me if this is a silly question, but I'm a future mom. So how do I know that baby is hungry? Because sometimes I watch my friends and my family and they give baby so little, I'm thinking, give baby more, you know, maybe not. So how will a mom know?
Yeah, so it depends on the baby's age. So very little babies will cry. And that's their main form of communication. And they'll also do something called rooting. So if something's next to their cheek over here, they'll move towards it. But that's not always a sign of hunger, because that's also a reflex, that kind of thing. But certainly if a baby's crying and they're little, then it probably is an indication that they're potentially hungry. It could also be overstimulation. So they are, I mean, it's a real minefield when they're little. And then as they get older to weaning age, they take a great deal of interest in what you're eating. So they start to watch what's on your plate, and as you feed yourself, they're watching that. And that can also be an indication that they're a little bit peckish and wanting to eat. And then obviously as they get older, their signals start to mature. So they might point at the milk, or actually say the word, I want some milk, or, you know, kind of tug at your shirt wanting some breast milk. So those are all signals that the baby would tell you that they're hungry.
Well, I wasn't breastfed because my mom had a cesarean and it was very painful for her to hold me. So I had a bottle from like day one. What are some of the other options when it comes to feeding baby that a mom could pursue?
Yeah, so I mean, there really are only three options. The one option is breastfeeding, which as was mentioned, you can actually do that all the way through, even once you've introduced other options. Option 2 is formula milk, and that can be introduced from the time the baby's very little. Again, you need to really have advice on that, and which is the best milk to go with. We really can't advise on on kind of brands and that sort of thing, but you can do formula milk. And then, of course, there's solids, and solids come in a little bit later. But even once solids are in, and so little one can go into solids anywhere between 4 and 6 months of age, then you should be breastfeeding at the same time alongside that as well.
And what should moms definitely not be giving baby in terms of feeding?
In terms of food, well, certainly they should not be giving them any water when they're very little if they're breastfeeding, because that can also interfere with the baby's kind of natural appetites and signals for breast milk. So they don't need water when they're very little. They do need water once they're onto formula and solids later, a little bit of water later on. Definitely, absolutely no solids under the age of 17 weeks. It's very important that a baby has an exclusive milk diet because of the way that their gut is, you know, can't deal with other types of food. And even once they're going onto solids, don't rush into it. You can wait all the way through until 6 months on an exclusive milk diet as well. So those are kind of broad principles. And then in terms of solids, there are things you must avoid for the first year completely, which is things like honey and obviously raw fish, things like that. You wouldn't be giving to your baby, like sushi. So there are things that you want to avoid with your little one when they're very little. But yeah, the gold standard is to give them breast milk if you can, formula and then solids later.
Oh, I love it. I'm going to have these two on speed dial at some point in the future. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you so much, Meg. And of course, that was our, today we're talking about breastfeeding, and of course, Baby Talk will continue on your Feel Good Breakfast show every single Thursday today. All day, by the way. Or tomorrow when it's Friday.